Welcome back to Crime Time, Inc.
Oh, this one's a good one.
This time, we're dealing with a case from 1998.
Okay.
The body in the bin murder.
Right.
It all revolves around a pretty gruesome discovery on the banks of the Hawkesbury River.
I know this one.
And you're not going to believe how this one unfolds.
No, this is a really interesting case.
So what is it about this case that stands out to you?
I think what really strikes me about this case is the lengths the perpetrator went to in order to conceal the crime. I mean, we're not talking about just tossing a body into any old bin.
Yeah.
This bin was sealed meticulously with 42 screws and silicone sealant.
Yeah.
There was even a hole cut into it.
Really?
Which suggests they were trying to manage some kind of damage or, contain something. It's just this level of premeditation is really disturbing.
It's like they were constructing a waterproof coffin.
Exactly.
Can you imagine being the family that stumbled upon that?
Ugh. It's just...
You're just going about your day, enjoying the river.
Yeah, having a picnic.
And then you make that horrifying discovery.
Absolutely. And to add to that, the condition of the body itself made identifying the victim a real challenge.
I can imagine.
The head and hands were missing.
Oh, wow.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with some of the most crucial pieces missing.
But there were still clues, right?
Yes.
Even with those pieces missing.
Yeah.
I understand the police zeroed in on the tattoos.
They did.
That were left on the body.
Yes. Those tattoos became the key to uncovering the victim's identity.
So how did that happen?
Well, a woman in condos saw the media appeal, recognized them.
The tattoos?
Yeah, the tattoos. And reported her missing brother-in-law, Peter Estill.
So now we have a name, Peter Estill. What can you tell us about him?
So Peter was a quiet man, lived a simple life in condos, kept to himself, didn't cause any trouble.
Yeah.
His last known interaction was with his brother and nephew on August 9th, 1998. The next day, his mother found his house empty, which was unusual for him.
And then just a few days later...
Oh, yeah.
His house burns down.
That's right.
That's a pretty big red flag, wouldn't you say?
Huge red flag.
Yeah. It almost feels like someone was trying to erase Peter from existence.
It does, doesn't it? And the fire was determined to be deliberate, which strongly suggested a cover-up.
Right. So at this point, investigators have to be connecting the dots. Is this fire connected to the body in the bin?
For sure.
Could this be the missing link?
That's a good question.
So let's recap the timeline.
Okay.
Peter disappears.
Yep.
His house is burned down. And then the body is found in a bin hundreds of kilometers away.
Yeah.
How did the police even begin to connect those dots?
Well, they had a crucial piece of evidence, the bin itself.
Oh.
It was traced back to Lithgow.
Okay.
And through some investigation, they found a connection between Peter Estill and a man named Bruce Patterson.
Okay.
Now, Bruce lived in Lithgow, but his ex-wife lived right next door to Peter in Candace.
Wait, so the victim and the potential suspect are linked through the suspect's ex-wife?
Yes.
That's a pretty complicated web of relationships.
It is. It definitely adds complexity to the case.
So what happened when they brought Bruce in for questioning?
Well, when Bruce was questioned about the bin,
he
claimed he had lost his and stolen a replacement. But inconsistencies in his story started popping up.
Of what?
Well, the way he disposed of his furniture, his actions around the time of Peter's disappearance, it all began to look very suspicious.
Yeah, so at this point, Bruce is starting to look guilty.
He is.
But do the police have enough to actually charge him with a crime?
Well, not quite yet. But here's where the case takes an unexpected turn.
Okay.
Months into the investigation, a psychiatrist contacts the police.
Oh, wow.
With some shocking news. His patient, Bruce Patterson, confessed to killing someone.
To the psychiatrist?
Yeah.
Wow.
Decapitating them and then disposing of the body in a bin.
He confessed to his therapist.
He did.
And then the therapist went straight to the police.
Yes.
Wow, that's
It's not an everyday occurrence, but it does happen.
No, for sure.
So Bruce was arrested at his ex-wife's place in Candos.
Okay.
He confessed to shooting Peter Estill during a fight they had while drinking, dismembering the body and disposing of it in the Hawkesbury River. He also admitted to burning Peter's head and hands in his fireplace.
Oh, my God.
And then setting fire to the house to cover his tracks.
Okay, so case closed, right?
Oh.
We've got a confession. Motive.
It's not that simple.
What more do we need?
The police began to find inconsistencies in Bruce's confession.
Oh, really?
The details weren't adding up.
Fast.
Well, The forensic evidence contradicted his claims of self-defense.
Okay.
And that the dismemberment happened at the house. It seems like he was trying to downplay his role in all of this.
So if his confession isn't completely accurate,
Yeah.
then what really happened?
Well, this is where Bruce's ex-wife, Lynette, enters the picture.
Okay.
She comes forward with a very different version of events.
Okay.
One that is far more disturbing than what Bruce had initially confessed to.
I have a feeling this is where it gets really interesting.
It does.
What did Lynette have to say?
Well, her testimony reveals a carefully planned murder, a cold-blooded execution, and a web of lies that is truly disturbing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Lynette, Bruce's ex-wife, comes forward, right? And her testimony, it just paints this whole different picture of what happened. She revealed Bruce's true intentions in a way that was really horrifying.
What did she say?
According to her, Bruce had been planning to kill Peter all along. He just considered Peter, an undesirable influence and didn't want him anywhere near his family.
Wow, that's just cold.
It is. It's just chilling.
To think he would take a man's life simply because he didn't approve of him, it's unbelievable. So what was his plan to get Peter out of the house?
Okay, so Lynette said Bruce lured Peter out of the house by promising him drugs and alcohol. Tragically, this worked. Bruce even brought his father along as they drove Peter away from his house.
So there was no drunken fight like Bruce had originally claimed.
Yeah.
This was a calculated act from the beginning.
Exactly.
Where did Bruce take Peter?
Lynette said Bruce drove Peter to a truck stop in Capertee.
Okay.
A pretty desolate location, away from any witnesses.
Right.
It was there that Bruce shot Peter.
That totally contradicts Bruce's story of self-defense. What about Peter's head and hands? Did Lynette say what happened to them?
Yes, and it's a pretty gruesome detail.
Okay.
Lynette said she saw Bruce burning Peter's head and hands in the fireplace at his house in Lithgow.
That's awful. And to think that Bruce was trying to convince the police that the murder happened at Peter's house, his lies were starting to unravel.
Exactly.
His story completely fell apart when you consider all the details Lynette revealed.
It did.
Not only did she witness the burning of the body parts, but she also helped Bruce transport Peter's body to Lithgow, where he put it into that wheelie bin.
Yes.
So Lynette was an accomplice, helping Bruce cover his tracks the entire time. I can't imagine the guilt she must have been carrying. What do you think made her finally come forward?
That's a really good question. It's difficult to know what her true motivations were.
Right.
But it's probably safe to assume that she couldn't bear the weight of what she knew any longer.
Yeah.
Perhaps she was also scared of what Bruce might do. Whatever her reasons, her testimony blew Bruce's lies wide open.
With Lynette's testimony and that serial number on the bin, the prosecution had a really strong case. How did Bruce respond to these new developments?
Well, when faced with that amount of evidence, Bruce's defense crumbled. He changed his plea to guilty for the murder of Peter Estill.
That must have been a relief for Peter's family to finally hear him admit to the crime.
Absolutely.
What was the outcome of the trial?
Bruce was sentenced to 22 years for murder and an additional 4.5 years for arson.
It may not bring Peter back, but at least justice was served.
It was.
It's tragic that this case began with that bin washing up on the banks of the river.
It is.
And the motive behind it all is so disturbing.
Yeah.
The fact that Peter's life was taken just because Bruce didn't approve of him is a reminder that evil can exist anywhere.
It certainly highlights the awful consequences of prejudice.
Right.
And how far someone will go to get what they want.
Yeah.
It's a story that really stays with you.
It does.
Yeah.
While we may never fully understand what motivated Bruce to do this, we can at least learn from it and try to create a world where everyone is valued and respected.
Absolutely. I think it's incredible how something as small as a serial number on a bin can dismantle a whole web of lies.
It's amazing.
Bruce thought he had gotten away with it, but that little detail was his downfall.
And Bruce had so many opportunities to come clean.
I know.
But he just kept digging himself deeper.
He did, didn't he?
Even after he confessed to his therapist, he still tried to manipulate the story and make himself look like the victim.
It's like he truly believed his actions were justified.
Yeah.
That by eliminating Peter, he was doing what was best for his family and community.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, it is.
And we can't forget about Lynette's role in this.
No, absolutely not.
She didn't pull the trigger.
No.
But she was still complicit in the cover-up?
It's complicated, though.
It is.
Clearly, Lynette was under Bruce's control and afraid of him. But by staying silent, she allowed him to avoid justice for all those months.
It's a difficult position to be in, knowing when to protect yourself versus when to do the right thing, especially when fear and manipulation are involved.
Absolutely. And in the end, Lynette choosing to speak up was crucial in convicting Bruce.
It was.
It must have taken a lot of courage for her to finally break free from his control and tell the truth.
For Peter's family, her testimony must have been a bittersweet victory.
It must have been.
They got closer to justice.
Yeah.
But nothing can truly replace their loved one.
This case definitely leaves us with unanswered questions.
Such as?
Well, what if Bruce's therapist hadn't gone to the police?
Yeah.
Would Lynette have eventually come forward on her own? We can only imagine.
We do know that Bruce Patterson's actions have left a permanent scar on everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Peter's family, his community, even Bruce's own children are all dealing with the trauma of this horrible crime.
It makes you think about how important it is to be vigilant
Yeah.
and aware of the warning signs of prejudice and intolerance before they escalate into something as serious as violence. We have to stand up against these harmful attitudes and create a society where everyone feels safe. You know, it really makes you think about the complexities of human behavior.
In what way?
Well, how could someone be so meticulous, in planning and executing a crime,
Right.
yet so careless in leaving behind that crucial piece of evidence?
Right.
The bin's serial number.
It's like a classic case of overconfidence, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He thought he had it all figured out.
Right.
But in the end,
Yeah.
it was that one tiny detail that brought his whole scheme crashing down.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that justice often works in unexpected ways.
And you're right about the overconfidence.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see it throughout the case, from his initial attempts to manipulate his confession
Yes.
to his belief that he could control the narrative.
Exactly.
It seems as though he genuinely believed he could outsmart everyone.
It does, doesn't it?
But he underestimated the power of truth, right? And the bravery of people like Lynette, who ultimately chose to do the right thing.
Yes.
Despite the risks.
Absolutely.
Think about what she had to overcome.
Yeah.
Fear, manipulation, the potential for retaliation.
I know.
It took incredible strength to break free from that.
It did. It really did. And her testimony wasn't just about bringing Bruce to justice.
What else was it about?
It was about reclaiming her own voice, Right.
Her own agency.
Okay, yeah.
That in itself is a powerful story of resilience.
This case really brings to light the devastating ripple effects of violence.
It does.
It's not just about the victim,
No.
but about the families,
Yeah.
the communities, everyone touched by the tragedy.
Yeah.
Peter's family will never truly recover from this loss.
No.
And even Bruce's own children will carry the weight of his actions.
It reminds us that actions have consequences.
Yes.
And those consequences often extend far beyond the immediate perpetrator and victim.
For sure.
We have a responsibility to each other
Yeah.
to build a society that prioritizes empathy,
Yeah.
understanding, and respect for all.
This case is a stark reminder that evil can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary lives.
It can.
And that it's up to all of us to be vigilant, to recognize the warning signs of prejudice and intolerance,
Right.
and to speak out against injustice wherever we see it.
You're right. We need to be willing to challenge our own biases.
Yes, to engage in difficult conversations and to create a world where everyone feels safe and valued.
Yeah, that's the legacy we need to build from tragedies like this.
It is.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what Simon and Tom think about this case in their weekly review on Sunday. But in the meantime, tune in tomorrow for another great true crime episode.